Welcome everyone. I'm Meylin, design lead at Wise, currently based in New York. So if you're ever around in New York, just hit me up for coffee. I'm always happy to chat to fellow designers. For anyone who hasn't heard of Wise, so Wise is like, we're trying to revolutionize the way we manage international money, and we help customers manage their money globally much easier and at low fees and with as much transparency as possible. And today I will talk a little bit about our rebrand, which we did a year ago. And I decided to kind of like take this topic a little bit because brand is a scary word for a lot of tech companies. And, like every company I've been with in sort of thinks about brand in different ways. And I want to unpack today how we thought about it at Wise and what we achieved with it. So the focus is really how we took something like looking like that to something like this, a little bit more energetic, lively, and reflective of our customer needs. When we started this rebrand project, we set ourselves to solve one of the biggest problems we face at Wise. When the company began, we were all about transfers, hence the name TransferWise, so moving money from A to B. And over time, the product evolved. It started with a sending proposition, and customers who like to send obviously like to spend and receive and grow their money. And by 2021, we could see that more of our customers were using us as an account rather than just a transfer tool. So TransferWise became Wise. Obvious update, just remove the name transfer. Everything's gonna be super clear. But a change alone can't change perception of the company. It actually created a little bit more confusion. People were like, so you're not transfers anymore? Or are you still transfers? And for us, that meant one big thing. We need to take a big, scary leap of trust and believe in the power of design and brand to accelerate this transition from TransferWise to Wise in a true form of change. And become the Wise account in truly. It's used daily. It's used by millions of customers all over the world. We had become part of our customers' lives, building meaningful relationships. The experience, the design, the brand mattered to our customers more than ever, and especially more than what we had before. Sending money was a once-in-a-while transaction, while moving money and managing your money was every day. And we didn't launch this quietly. Many companies sort of go for this soft launch, a hesitant check that everything works, doesn't get too much roar. But we actually chose to go for a big bang across 3 platforms in 170 countries in the hands of 16 million customers. And it wasn't easy, but we had a faith in our design teams and our new brand system. We knew it would work, and it did. So I would just kind of talk through three quick points, why we did it and how did we convince everyone to do it. As I mentioned, often hear the word rebrand as a dirty word, and it's often perceived as coming at a cost of shipping valuable other products to our customers. For example, why would a team spend on changing the UI of an existing feature if they can ship new features? I'm sure some of you have faced those challenges as part of those conversations. But where I wanted to emphasize is this was never about the brand itself. It was always about our mission as a company. Wise believes in solving customer problems, and we believe in a fairer world. And we do things differently. It's not a brand; it's a mission that drives us. And when you talk to our customers, they describe Wise as the world's most international account. Wise ultimate shift from this transfer money to managing money has changed how the old banking world works. And we were seeing this in our data as well. We were seeing a big uptick in our strategic direction and where we wanted to focus. We saw customer bases changing from once in a while caring about price, speed, and transfer to somewhat more of a relationship, everyday usage. So we were different, but were we though? Who can spot Wise within seconds in here? Who can spot what we deliberately were standing differently for? We were a disruptive company. Internally, we were talking about ourselves like that. Our customers, our media was seeing us like that. But why that was not reflected in how we stand out? We have not updated a single component for the last 10 years, even if our product was growing. Blue, blue, blue. We say we are different than banks, but we just look the same. And usually when I get to this slide, I note that in their category, no one seems to stand out or lose out, resulting really in a bunch of mediocre brand experiences that look like one another. And we had average logo as well. In isolation, our name, our logo was not necessarily standing out either. Our average illustration styles that you couldn't recognize which one was reflective of the Wise customers versus other banking experience customers. Average messaging checked, we were there. And yet when we were doing things and the mission and the people that were building this product believed we were doing it differently. We were never hiding from our customers. We've always been very transparent how we talk about our fees. We've been encouraging banks to change the way they talk about their fees. And we have nothing to hide. So we decided that we need to show less. And our customers also didn't identify Wise as blue, which was really, really interesting. Once we spoke to our customers, green was a word that kept coming. And the old blue was sort of standing out for legacy of our older features at Wise. And we were so much more than transfers. Now we were doing serving more people, being in more places. And we used this momentum to accelerate our mission, not to rebrand, but help our mission and communicate with our customers. Hence why I call it reflecting our mission rather than rebranding. So what did we do? It took 6 weeks to get these concepts, the normal like design cycle process where we did discovery work, shaped our strategy, and developed some concepts. The initial concepts were a good start, but nowhere near where we wanted to go and what we have today. They had a lot of potential though, and design is always about looking at potential and not perfection. We leaned into our customer perception. They were describing us as green, so we decided to kind of start narrowing down some of the high confidence area we had for ourselves. These are all the ideas where we started from. Let's be honest, they were not nearly as great as they could be. And there were a lot of ideas, and we decided to kind of start categorizing them and thinking, how can we start investigating into some of the potential ideas we really like? And one of those is what we call tapestries. Distinguishable, playful textures that can be used across multiple services. This one looks like jungle. It's not really representative of anything. But there are some details that sort of build out this customer experience, individual customer experience. For example, this one has the Sydney Opera. And each tapestry is actually a reference for our customers' movements. Because our mission was about international money movement and everyone's quite unique in how they organize their money, we wanted that reflected in everything we do in our design experiences. So we reference borders, photography, colors, iconography to create a lot of individual patterns, that represent different behavior, unique beings just like me, just like each one of you on this call. Deliberately different, just like our product as well, and like all our customers. And you can stare at them time and time again and always spot something new. That's what's really exciting about them. Our Yorkshire sheep, Japanese lantern, the Brooklyn Bridge. These tapestries are really celebration of people, places, and culture. It's a true snapshot of everywhere money. And they work on so many surfaces, which is what's great about them, tested over and over again before they go into product. And we work through every detail, as I mentioned, a tapestry, typography, button, alert, critical comms. Everything got its own kind of focus and its own sort of like level of detail required. And we had concepts, we had billboards, we had ideas down to paper. That's sort of the easy part in a way. That's the concepting. But it's quite hard to get from billboards to things looking great in customers' hands. What really customers care about is not a massive billboard of what the company stands for. It's actually experiencing those rebrand elements in the way they interact with our product. So how we made it happen? How did we brought all this into product? It took 6 weeks to concept and 8 months to making this into a reality. The question we asked ourselves is, how do we translate this in product? And how do we take these concepts and something that has been built by 50 product teams, measuring single metrics individually, and so much complexity and legacy, into convincing that we have to kind of like make those changes to reflect what we stand for. And we had so much ideas around like in our Figma files that were ready to be translated in product, so that we can turn into looking into something like that. Short answer is there's no recipe for awesome work. I don't think I can give any particular tips, as every company culture, as well as like work and product is different. I do, however, have like 2 perhaps phases in which we thought about this. Phase number 1, we called it foundational phase, and phase number 2 was more about elevating and deciding where design can spend more time into crafting better experiences. Phase number 2 was all about design system and using the system to do a lot of the heavy lifting, so that it's just a matter of flipping a switch from old blue colorways, inaccessible fonts, outdated illustrations, and create a world of possibilities for our new tone of voice, illustrations, tapestries to live in customers' hands. And bringing our system to the center of attention, and as a first phase of this project, was critical. It was the most important and challenging task we undertook. We had to review each component meticulously and each piece individually. We used Figma to reskin everything, see how it looks, see how it breaks. Before anything goes to engineering, we ensure that we understand the risks and the challenges of every piece, individually pieced component. And the way we did that was dividing everything into digestible format, from flags to grammar, icons to typography. Every component got the level of attention it required. We were transparent with what we were working on and where our attention goes. We use the design system to kind of like give us that foundational like approach to changing the experience. And we had to kind of take it further, and that's where I call it phase 2. Now we had something that worked, but was it enough? And I wanted to kind of highlight for this section with this quote: "Being safe is risky." This was said by Seth Godin. He's a marketing guru, highlighting the paradox at the heart of modern product development. There is a lot of chatter about needing to be bolder in a lot of companies and standing out, but inevitably the conversation turns into something less risky and sort of best practice driven. For instance, the prevalence of minimalist design inspired by tech giants like Apple and Google have sort of led to this sea of indistinguishable websites and apps all looking the same, just like Wise as well. And don't get me wrong, we don't want everything to become exciting. Sometimes a seamless checkout experience or a cart refill is just fine for what we need. But we would want to find moments in which we can return to the excitement and energy and bring that to the next level. And this is what we were on the lookout for at Wise. We didn't want to change what worked perfectly, but we started looking at experiences we can elevate. What were the moments in product that we can transform and excite without actually annoying our customers, without creating extra load and new mental models just for the sake of it? We identified a few impactful surfaces, like this is our success screen, the card has been ordered, it's like a happy moment, we can go a little bit bolder and bring some joy. Our intro screens, it's the first thing that our customers see when they download our app. We use that to inspire and give them a glimpse at what they could be getting out of the product. And we started taking complete screens that look like that, with incredible cross-platform inconsistencies, actually, and bespoke patterns everywhere, and transforming them into clear and easy-to-use experiences. We didn't change any feature set or our offering. It was a mere UI flip from our design system components and some extra love on top of the screens that mattered. And suddenly we had much clearer and actually more usable experiences for our customers. We looked at old cluttered legacy screens. Our engineers were hungry for cleaning up. They were full of technical debts. We found so many unnecessary states. That just didn't own up to our standards of quality. And iteration upon iteration, to the extent that tiny little problems were not solving the holistic better experience for customers, we kind of like decided that it's time to simplify. We knew our customer base, so why were we beating around the bush around what content should we show them? We used our rebrand to make our product much, much, much better, easier to use, easier to maintain by our engineers, and set for the scale of our future. And that allowed us to go from what you see on the left to the right in just 6 months. And we kept on improving and improving until things started looking more like on the right than what's in the middle. Bespoke patterns were killing us, and our system patterns were not providing the holistic experience out of the box. Again, in this phase, we didn't just leave it to the design system. We actually decided to go a step further and make it even better, until things started looking more consistent end-to-end with minimal effort. All this while teams were continuously working on new features and shipping the work that they needed in their teams, so that we can become truly the world's money and start looking more like the product that our customers deserve. These are some of the surfaces we identified. We used motion where we could go further, and experimented with anything from like details that excite to details that provide clarity and ease of use, such as faster transaction experience. For example, we took what we had with those do more cards, mapped them out, looked where we can push. Do we want more promotional or functional? Put them in situation, such as at the bottom of the page, prototype, test it, looked at it for a few days, and finally made a decision. And that's how we took every single element and tried to kind of understand how far we want to push it and where we want to kind of draw it back. And we experimented with a lot of movements, surfaces in the product that no one was thinking of, like the refresh. We saw an opportunity moment where we can kind of like bring a little bit more joy and excitement around refreshing your experience and also experiencing the Wise brand. Every little detail until we had it pixel perfect in Figma, in our hands, in prototypes, and in until it goes to engineering and finally gets into our customers' hands. So the big question probably is, was it successful? We say yes, because it worked for our customers, and they told us about it. That was a lot of love and beautifully received across the design community too, which can be tough sometimes on different rebrands. So yeah, there is plenty more to come from Wise and onwards. Thanks.
Awesome. That was really interesting, kind of looking behind the scenes of particularly, I guess, the iterations that you were going through as well. So thank you for sharing. That was really interesting. So yeah, if anybody has any questions out there, please do share them, and I will put them forward to Meylin. But while we're waiting for people, because it's always kind of jarring. Nobody knows when the talk is about to end, so they don't have their questions ready. So I've got a few that I want to jump in with. One of the challenges, and I'm sure there's plenty of designers out there who are jealous at the kind of free reign that you got there to work with it, and particularly as you were saying at the end, where you were kind of going into those moments of delight and the moments of kind of surprise, that a lot of people are struggling to get any form of budget to try, like, okay, maybe even if it's with a rebrand, it's let's just get the bare minimum in, let's update the colors, refresh it, rather than kind of moving forward. So how did you go about getting such buy-in and such kind of budget behind this fairly large scale effort?
Yeah, so it's fair to see there is a combination of efforts here, like within our design community at Wise, which is fairly strong and a lot of talented designers. I think what was really sort of the pick up momentum was when we shifted our conversation from this is not a change of color, it is actually reflecting our mission, and sort of like putting our leadership and the people building the product and the teams into that thinking position. Are we really reflecting who our customers are we talking speaking their voice? Especially there were anything from like big strategic leaps to small efforts that we could be doing. It was time to change our font, for example. It's completely inaccessible in a lot of languages. It was time to change our tone of voice. So we sort of like took each element and communicated it very meticulously over like week one, week two. So different people had buy-in across different elements they cared about. So you would have like engineers and a certain type of leadership caring about the accessibility of the font, and some other type of leadership would care about more the strategic leap. You're just making sure that you're transparent with your design process and you openly communicate where you see the gaps as a designer. Most of the time, people are like, yeah, like that's like so obvious. We should just go and fix that.
Yeah. And as you were saying that, like I've worked in organizations when they were doing a rebrand, and that's the scary thing for the people signing off. It's like, okay, well, let's just focus on, oh no, wait, now we have to do the font, now we have to do, and it just kind of, the scale keeps increasing. So what did you do to make sure that it didn't become what I've seen in other organizations, where it just becomes almost too large, and that slows down all progress of moving forward?
Yeah, we decided what are the big focus areas. For example, once my advice is have a game plan. Always, it's a marathon, not a sprint. If people think they can execute a rebrand in 1 quarter, I would really like to see that done successfully. It's never 1 quarter, but also it's important to kind of find what the business cares about. At the end of the day, Wise cared about being deliberately different, but that was not reflected. And not every company is ready for a rebrand, I guess, from another standpoint as well. But definitely, like we sort of focused on the areas where we could have impact and momentum. For example, we recently we launched 1 year ago, and we recently just updated our typography again. These are some of the wins we decided to park for the big launch. So, and we continue working on them as we had some adjustments we wanted to make, but they were not that necessary for the big launch. So yeah, like we just took it as a marathon, and we still continue improving our rebrand. That's absolutely, we're not done. Rebrand never stops.
Yeah. And I thought is really interesting, your collage of like all the different blue kind of different financial organizations. Was there a pushback? Is there safety in that breeds, like you were saying, with the kind of the people are familiar with certain patterns. So law firms always kind of look the same. And financial firms, they always they like to project this image of like the old school bank that's got the big vault down in the bottom. So was there any pushback of, will we lose customer trust? Will they think we're just a small startup on the internet versus a really established financial institution?
Yeah, that's a great question for sure. I definitely like think more and more customers are accustomed to the internet now, right? Like financial products that are not high street banks are dominating the market at the moment. So I wouldn't underestimate like the power of customers seeing through those like colors and typography, and what was perceived as safe perhaps is not always perceived as the future. We At Wise, we always did things differently, so we never wanted to actually look like a bank, and like behave like one either. I'm not sure why we went for the blue colorway. I'm sure that it was a customer that said that we were blue at some point, as Wise is incredibly customer driven. But again, once customers start describing you as green and not as blue, like you have to kind of like tune in your ears and start listening to that. And that was sort of the key momentum we caught up on.
And it just kind of rolled from there.
Yep.
That's interesting. And do you have any examples where, because I guess there is the risk of going risky, that it backfires as well? Like it's that kind of high risk reward kind of situation. Do you have any examples during your rebrand where you tried something risky and then realized maybe that was a bit a step too far?
I'm not sure like whether it was risky. It was more time-based, perhaps. It was not the right time. We have adjacent products like Wise Business and Wise Platform as well. So we've been thinking how we also help differentiate those, but essentially like create a bigger brand piece around Wise itself as a company. There was definitely some consideration of how we want to go about the different product offerings. Different companies obviously like kind of try to differentiate the brands of the like platforms they use as well. We felt that that was probably not the right call at that moment, but we are still like kind of keeping it in the books and still thinking through those details. I'd say like anything that felt like a challenge or a risk, we decided to deprioritize it and prioritize the high confidence area, and that's how we sort of kept this momentum going.
Nice. Nice. So I guess we'll be looking forward to some Wise Business rebranding in the future then.
That's still unsure, but I'm sure some of our customers would love it as well.
Yeah. And what's I guess there's people out there who are in a similar situation to what you described at the start, where you're communicating something and this all your marketing is saying, oh, we're different, or that kind of thing. But when you look at the design and the assets and all of that, you're very much ordinary and in with the rest of the pack. So if there's some designers listening, what advice would you give them? Because often it can feel like I don't have the power to influence or the power to control this situation. So do you have any advice that you could give to people in that situation?
Yeah, I think it's always like there's two things. Again, I would repeat myself, but it is important to communicate the business value of this change, which is essentially reflecting a mission. It's not a rebrand for just changing skin, like UI skin and aesthetics. So it's the mistake I've seen, and I've certainly done it in my past, is talk about rebrand as this big word, and a lot of people in leadership and tech world don't really understand it. Like us designers, we get it, but you also need to kind of like shift your language and just explain it to them in what is it they care about. At Wise, we cared about reflecting who we are with the new features we were offering, and that is sort of the talk. Other companies perhaps care about growth, retention, whatever the metric is. Just find what the business cares about and go from there. And the second thing is like experiment as much as possible in Figma. Show the possibilities, inspire. Figma is like, for us, pushing pixels is fairly much cheaper than just bringing stuff into engineering, right? Like once a concept goes into engineering, it's like impossible to revert back or change your mind. You can like always use the power of design to communicate your ideas, show what it could look like. And I'm sure like if there is a momentum within the company, that you could feel it, and there will be support.
Excellent. Well, that actually brings us to time. So thank you once again, Meylin, for sharing that story of the Wise rebrand. I found it really interesting. I hope everybody out there did as well.
Thanks, Rory.